Zimbabwe, where President Robert Mugabe has unleashed more chaos against his own people. He's passed a new law to remove the final white farmers from their land, but it's a decision which will affect the whole country.
Food production is at a record low and millions are facing starvation because so little is now grown. Mugabe's supporters are looked after, but for people who oppose him, there is only brutal repression. Our Africa correspondent Martin Geiser now from inside Zimbabwe, and I should warn you, his report contains violent and disturbing images.
These are the depths to which Robert Mugabe's regime has sunk. The majority of the people on the ground here are women. They're being beaten by police officers for complaining about conditions in their country. We got hold of this footage in Harare this week and smuggled it out. The rest of the world may find these scenes shocking, but depressingly, here, they're becoming the norm. Dissent simply isn't tolerated in Zimbabwe. Lucia Matabenga, a middle-aged mother, was left with these bruises after a small union demonstration. Police took her to the cells and beat her relentlessly.
They were also telling me that they are not trained to write any dockets. They are trained to kill people, and that they were going to kill me.
There's a climate of fear right across Zimbabwe, most people far too scared to speak out. We drove into Harare's townships to see conditions for ourselves. You know, one of the real problems of telling this story is the fact that the government here clearly doesn't want it to be told. And one of the things the Mugabe regime gets right is its intelligence operation. It might not be terribly sophisticated, but there are lots and lots of eyes on the ground, and in a place like this you can really feel them watching. The trick is not to stay in one place for too long. But you don't have to hang around to see how bad life has become here. Raw sewage runs through the streets. Children collect filthy drinking water from a hole in the ground because the taps have been dry for a week. This is a country on its knees. Driving through it, we saw firsthand what a devastating blow one man has dealt his own people. This is how the majority of Zimbabwe's land is being worked now. Mothers scratching in the soil for a handful of beans. These fields were once the breadbasket of southern Africa. Now the equipment, like the economy, lies in tatters. A few farms are still working, but not for long. The government, which crippled a booming industry, is about to deal the killer blow.
These guys, they're at their husband. Where are they now?
As we arrived at the Farmers' Union headquarters in Harare, officials were talking frantically on their mobile phones. They'd just been given the news they were dreading. Robert Mugabe's final push has begun.
So, I think it's totally illegal.
6 years after his land grab began, the president has signed a bill allowing the eviction of the few white farmers who remain. Under the new law, they should be given notice of up to 3 months, but some are being told they have just hours to get out.
3 days ago, a government official told me that is a government vehicle. I came to claim my piece of land.
As part of a revolution.
As part of the revolution. And he's got the backing of the police. Because if you resist, you will just go and get the police, like it happened in the past.
A food shortage is inevitable. Experts fear next year there will be a famine. Without international help, it's thought 4 million may die. Mugabe stands accused of planning this, starving the sections of the community who don't support him, and committing the ultimate crime.
We've been on the verge of genocide now for a couple of years, and I think in the next year we will be actually into it with what's going on at the moment.
And so the people here are left to reap the misery their president has sown. As the sun sets on any faint hope Zimbabweans had for their future, the international community stands accused, once again, of looking on.
Well, Martin is back in neighbouring South Africa now and joins us from there. Martin, there were terrible scenes there in your report, and it seems there could be worse still to come for Zimbabwe.
Well, yes, indeed. Depressingly, the people of that country already know that next year will bring the worst harvest in Zimbabwe's history. And it's nothing to do with the weather, and it's nothing to do with the soil. This is a man-made disaster. Listen to these statistics. The country simply doesn't have enough seed to grow even half of the maize the people there need. Even if it did, it doesn't have any fertilizer left to help that seed grow. And even if it had that, they've run out of spare discs for their ploughs, so they can't till the soil properly. That is the extent to which the agricultural industry in Zimbabwe has been allowed to rot, and that is why, if nothing is done, people there will starve.
And that is why there are charges of genocide being brought against Mugabe. How does he answer that?
Well, he brings out his usual answer, as you heard. His people are calling this a revolution. He tries to keep us out. He tries to keep the world from seeing. And he says to those who ask that he's taking land back from the white people in Zimbabwe and giving it to the black Zimbabweans. He says it is rightfully theirs. Of course he's not doing that. He's giving it to a handful of his cronies and a few of his supporters, and they're letting these farms decay. You see that with every mile you drive through the Zimbabwean countryside. It is incredibly depressing to look at, and if you consider the potential consequences of what's happening there, I have to say it's terrifying.
Martin, thank you.
After spending half his life on death row,